Ring ring, it's time for another episode of Crossplay Conversations, the show where we dive deep on the world of video games while keeping it light. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I've got my two pals with me. My first friend, his name is the sneaker savant, Joseph Hooper. Hello!
Hello, how's it going? I said I was going to show a sneaker every episode. I'm not doing that. I don't have a sneaker. I do.
How about I show one
instead?
instead?
Here's a Nike Slide. And
Ooh.
Jacob has a Lego sneaker.
I have a Lego Adidas Superstar right now. There it is.
Look at the laces. Nice little bit of detail there.
It's a great detail. And that voice you heard, it's too small for any foot above child size.
Okay, all right.
That other voice you heard is Luke Lewis, our friendly neighborhood podcaster. Luke, hello.
Hello, hello.
Today we're doing a little update on an episode that we did a couple of months ago. I think we're going to start calling these the State of the Union around games, where we're just going to let you know exactly how we feel about the current state of video games and all the terrible things that have happened in the industry. But before we go to despair, I want to start with our icebreaker question, where we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to ask this week's question, which is, what new IP have you enjoyed most in the last couple of years? Does anyone have one that they want to throw down?
Oh, wait. Okay, I'm just going to say this answer, and I'll give two answers. I'll give one sad answer and one questionable answer. My sad answer is, of course, Hi-Fi Rush. Rest in peace. Debatably, we'll never see another one, but the one that we got, absolutely love it. My questionable answer is Astrobot, and I know it was on the VR, like PlayStation VR. I never played that one, so PlayStation Astro's Playroom was my first introduction to Astro. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So that would be my other answer.
Luke?
Nice. I think I'll throw out. I was thinking about Dredge recently.
Yeah.
Game I really enjoyed. A new IP, a genre that I don't dabble with, of like boat and fishing games, but had a really great narrative twist and some spooky vibes, and they've kept it going with really quality DLC since release, and now we're getting a movie, so I'm interested to see what the world does with that universe. So I'll throw that one out. How about for you, Jacob?
I think I'd probably have to go, because it is now a series. I'm going to go with Hades, because that has just come out in the last couple years. And I know that people might say, like, but it's Supergiant and their games are all kind of the same. But no, my friends. Hades is a very different game that I have purchased on at least 3 consoles and love the shit out of. And with Hades 2, have either of you played the Hades 2 early access yet?
Yes.
It's quite good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, that shit's gonna bang. So, Hades is probably my answer, because a lot of the other games that I've loved in the last couple of years, the indies, your Neon Whites, your Dave the Diver, is that indie? We're not going to debate that here. Those are just single games at the moment. So, I'm gonna go with Hades.
Nice.
Any other like major IP we want to talk through?
I do want to call out that you said that Supergiant's games are all the same. Is that true? Do people say that about Supergiant? Is that an accusation that's been thrown out?
No, I probably just threw out that accusation, being like,
you just wanted to set up a disparagement so you could praise them in response.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
that's really what I did.
Stylistically, there's some similarities. Like if I saw every protagonist of every Supergiant game on a screen together, like they would fit. You know what I mean, to some extent. So I could see it, but I think gameplay wise, they do a lot of varied genres and approaches.
I never really thought about it, but Supergiant, I mean, this team taking W's. I mean, we're starting at Bastion, like even Pyre, which is not the most acclaimed.
Underrated.
100%.
I need to play Pyre. I think I have it in my Steam library, because they're always on sale for a couple bucks every major Steam sale, but that game looks cool.
They've done a lot of Transistor, or is it Resistor?
Transistor.
Yeah. They've done a lot of experimentation and a bunch of cool different aesthetics. Not visually, they're all kind of the same visual style, but like the theming has all been a little bit different. And I mean, very solid like development history with that team. Shout out to Supergiant Games real quick.
And I mean, some great pedigree. Folks that worked on Command and Conquer and some other titles. I guess I just wish they could make more games, but I will take what they make.
Totally.
With love.
I have 2 quick IPs that I'll
Please.
throw out that I think will kind of segue into the next part of our conversation. But Dishonored is an IP that I absolutely adore, that was very unexpected when it came out and really resonated with me, and the sequel only elevated it in terms of like one of my favorite stealth games, one of my favorite immersive sim style games in that realm. And then I'd also throw out Hi-Fi Rush last year, which I know we all adored and did something really new and different within the space in a time where we get a lot of sequels, we get a lot of smaller projects, but it was cool to see a big budget title that took a lot of risks, and as we'll get into today, was cut short too soon.
Yeah. Is that a good segue to get into the despair? Are we going to do it?
I mean, oh God, just hearing Jacob's the saddest yeah possible, and now we're gonna, you know what? Well, let's just get into it. Let's just get into
it.
it.
You guys said let the man host, so the man's gonna host, and the man's gonna cook.
Let's cook. Let's cook.
Okay.
I think we have to address it, and then we can talk about the future. We can talk about predictions. We can be optimistic where we can.
Sure.
Yeah.
So sure.
It's okay to lament a little bit, I think.
Let's lament about the state of the video game industry. We did this conversation a couple of months ago where we talked about where publishers were, where macro sort of the industry was. And we're just going to give an update because as you've seen in 2023, layoffs were bad. And in the first 6 months of 2024, layoffs and consolidation in the industry are worse. So I guess I just want to start by taking stock of how we feel about the industry now compared to when we spoke a few months ago. Joseph, did you want to kick us off and tell us how you're feeling? I've got my leg up, I've got my book, and I'm ready to listen. Give me a nickel and give me your thoughts.
Sure. I mean, sad is not great. It's very depressing, especially when you get hit week after week like we were earlier in the year of just like this team shut down, that team shut down. And, I know that some teams get looked at more favorably than others where, you see some studios and you're like, well, that last game wasn't that great. So, whatever. Or, oh, this game is so acclaimed. How could they shut the studio down? But at the end of the day, there's still a bunch of people who were trying to make products that they were excited about that got put in this bad position out of no fault of their own. And now where do they go? Like there's nobody hiring. Video game industry as a whole is kind of toxic right now where the pay isn't that great. The hours aren't that great. And there's no job security anywhere, right? So it just kind of sucks, especially in a time where you look at the gaming landscape. And I want to talk about this later, but we're coming off of like the battle royale, microtransaction, like, I don't know, game development hell, where it seems like every game that's not by, a particular developer or a particular set of developers kind of just fall into this trope of, hey, we're chasing the Fortnite trend, or we're chasing the microtransaction trend or the live service trend. And it's kind of like, okay, what is our future now? Like now that we're laying off all these people, who's going to introduce the new ideas that actually kind of get us back to a place where we can be excited and experimental with our games? And right now, I don't really know. Like there are still great developers and teams out there, but as a whole, it doesn't look like the industry is encouraging experimentation, and a lot of people are afraid to take a risk right now. So that kind of sucks. And that's probably where I'll start here. I have more to say, but I'll start there.
Luke, how you feeling, buddy?
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar place with it, and I bring a weird perspective to it all because I started working in games in December of last year, so I joined the games industry, professionally speaking, at a really tumultuous time for the games industry, and so it's been difficult to be excited about the games industry in a lot of ways, and seeing the constant revolving door of layoffs, like Joseph mentioned, is really gut-wrenching. As someone who's been laid off previously, I know how horrible it feels, and I know how soul-sucking the entire experience is. And yeah, it's been really tough, but to take an industry that I love so much and have followed for so long, it's just really, really hard to watch, and to see folks that put their heart and soul into projects day in and day out to make something cool, to make something they are inspired by. It just really sucks to see that they don't have that job security, that even if they have a commercially successful title, that they aren't rewarded, that they, these parent companies are looking out for the bottom line and not anything else. And that's really hard to reconcile with. And I struggle on a lot of days. Even this past weekend with Summer Games Fest, so many amazing events, so many cool game announcements, but in the back of my head, I'm still thinking about like the lingering effects of these layoffs, and just that looming sense of doom even amidst the positive moments. So it's tough to be optimistic, but I still love video games, and I still love the people that care, and the people that are trying their best to make the industry a more positive place. So hanging in there, I think, is the bottom line for me. How about for you?
Yeah, I think just this week we got closures. This would have been a week ago by the time you're listening to this. Closures from Pieces Interactive, who worked on the latest Alone in the Dark game, as well as Galvanic Games, who worked on Wizard with a Gun. And I think that the sad part is that there is not one reason why studios are shutting down. With the first case, that was a company that got embraced. And we all know sort of what happened with Embracer Group, brought a bunch of assets together, hoping to make money off intellectual property, tried to get Saudi money. Saudi money did not come. They split the company into three, and saddled all the debt with the board game company Asmodee, and then there's sort of two other publishers that are smaller than when they started. Incredibly sad situation. Incredibly sad situation there. But I think the thing that just makes me sad is that there is no one reason why these closures are happening. I would always say, hey, it's the zero, it's ZERP, it's the zero interest rate phenomena of people just, if things go poorly, they can just borrow money because money is basically free, so they can throw a bunch of shit against the wall. And hey, if one thing ends up becoming the next Valorant, the next League of Legends, then they can live off those off that revenue forever. I just think that the game development pipeline, especially in AAA, has gotten incredibly stale. And it's because we are a hit-driven business, and we are getting back to a hit-driven business that is risk-averse. I mean, look at Sony's portfolio. We're going to talk about individual game studios later, but with their Bungie acquisition, it seems like they are only chasing games that are online shooters, that have chance for microtransaction. If I see another 5 versus 5 hero shooter, I'm going to vomit. I just don't want to see it anymore. Like, guys, the Valorant age, Joseph, you mentioned, a type of game that is done. I think we are even past the, like, hey, Valorant is popular, why don't we just do that era. We need something new. And it's just really sad that I don't really think we're going to get that in this era where it costs money to, where money isn't coming from VCs, money from Saudi isn't going to last forever, and they need to make hits, and they're just not doing it.
And kind of jumping off that point, I think it's like super sad, but also it's just kind of the state of things where the games that made sense 10, 15 years ago just do not make sense anymore. I don't know if I've even mentioned this on this podcast before, but I feel like I have. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. I got 2 copies back there. I got one on PlayStation, one on GameCube. And that's because I walked in a Blockbuster or a GameStop or whatever. I saw it on the shelf and said, oh, that looks cool. Let me pick that up. That just doesn't make sense anymore in this day and age. Like, you can't have 30, 40 people working on a Ty the Tasmanian Tiger that's going to drop on a random Tuesday this year. Like, and as much as I hate that, it's also just the reality of things. Like, making games is easier than ever in terms of like distributing them via Steam or what have you. It's easier to put things out in front of people's faces. So like, it's no longer a group of like, these X number of publishers kind of dictate what ends up on GameStop shelves. It's like Billy Basso can go out there, make a game by himself, and like make sure the game gets in front of a bunch of people without ever having to release a physical copy, right? Same with Balatro. Like, so yeah, it kind of sucks when I look at games like Alone in the Dark, and I'm like, I look at that game and I'm like, that just does not make sense. Like, I cannot imagine an entire team working on this and being like, yeah, it just makes total sense that this game that, has this big old team with this giant publisher behind it is going to release.
That
And
has
like,
2 huge actors in it that probably demanded big money.
yeah. And like in 2024, it's completely reasonable that nobody knows about that game. Nobody buys that game because there's so many other things taking up your attention, and people aren't going to places where these games are being put right in front of you. Right. So, I think it is like a necessary evolution of how games are delivered and created to people, because we do get amazing indie titles like the Balatros and the Animal Wells, but it also just kind of sucks that there are these like passionate teams working on these like products that typically would have done well 10, 15 years ago that just have almost no chance of finding an audience and making the return on like however much it costs to make that game and pay those developers.
I'm gonna refer. There's a tweet by Jacob Novak Navok. That is a great read. We'll find a way to link it in the show notes here. It is a Twitter thread about Final Fantasy the series and how we end up in a situation where Square Enix is disappointed by sales, which just seems like has been the tone from them for the last couple of years. Ever since they shed a lot of their North American studios, or right before that, I feel like it's always this never meets expectations. And the way I always think about that, or the way I think about that tweet, is we end up in the situation every time because of the 5-step program of game dev. Is you set a marketing and a dev budget if you're developing in AAA for a game that's going to come out 5 years from now. So you are developing Rebirth. It takes you 5 years. So you essentially say, we assume that it will sell more than Remake. It will sell more because there are more PS5s out there, and it will sell more because macroeconomically people will spend at the same level they've been spending plus 5% because games were growing in COVID. The thing that happens is we get shifts in people's disposable income. We get shifts in the types of games that people are playing. We are in the attention economy, and therefore you are not just competing against games, you are competing against TikTok. You are competing against YouTube and Netflix and going outside and touching grass. And so what ends up happening is you build your expectations based on, where games are going to be at, plus compound growth over 5 years. But what ends up happening is games actually don't grow, and therefore you don't hit the sales you were expecting. Your shareholders are disappointed, they demand action, and then you lay people off. Like, it is a vicious cycle, and I don't know what will fix it, because I don't think development cycles are getting shorter. I think they are getting longer. I think so often about Perfect Dark and being the first quadruple A video game that will be a 10-year dev cycle. And will we even want Perfect Dark at the end of it? Who knows? Joseph, you
Yeah,
have things to say.
yeah. Do I want Perfect Dark? Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But
Was that even gameplay?
I do.
I'm not even sure anymore.
going back to like the Square Enix thing, I think it's interesting because it's almost like, to put it in video game terms or fighting game terms, I guess. We were playing Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi back in the day. We were just having fun. We were, you're fighting and you can mash buttons and you're having a good time, right? Even
Great
if
game.
you screw up a little bit, you don't need to be that good at the game to win. Now it seems like we're in the Tekken Street Fighter era of game development, where any false move you make, any mistake you make, you immediately get punished for it by consumers or by the market or whatever, right? Like, so you look at a game like Final Fantasy Remake or Rebirth, sorry, or even Final Fantasy 16, and you look at those games and you say, okay, we'll have this budget. We expect it to sell this much, but if it doesn't really sell this much, like, I feel like back in the day, you were shooting so far over what you thought you would do, that even if you underperform, you're still like kind of in the ballpark of where you needed to be to like make your return on investment for a game. And I just don't think that we are there anymore. Like, you put out a Final Fantasy Rebirth, it takes, I don't even think the development cycle on that was that long. Like, it came out pretty quickly, all things considered, after remake, but the budget had to be crazy. Obviously, you see how big that game is. And it was just like miscalculation. Like, all those PS5s didn't sell as, fast as PlayStation wanted to, right? Like, you saw they adjusted their hardware. Now there's also like, maybe people don't really want to buy into Final Fantasy Rebirth right now. Baldur's Gate just came out. They're kind of tired of RPGs. There are all these different factors that are like, maybe a lot of people will
Also,
just
a
skip.
sequel.
Exactly. Like, and these things are obviously like foreseeable, but at the time when you actually set out on this journey to make this product, it's not, you don't know how big of an impact these different factors are going to have, right? You think, oh, it's Final Fantasy, of course it'll sell. Like, remake sold fine. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer to see that even these games don't get near where they need to be to like make it make sense, right? And I do think that Square Enix is a company that obviously always seems to not get their expectations met when it comes to pretty much any project they put out. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like we're in this vicious cycle, this two-way vicious cycle of, one, everybody's just playing Fortnite and Call of Duty and FIFA and 2K, and it's like, you just cannot get people away from those games anymore. Where I don't think that was how it was back in the day. Like, people, of course, played all those games religiously, but people would still pick up a Halo and try out a different first-person shooter, or like, there were people that would play Killzone, not a ton, but there were people that would play. But now it's like, all of my time and energy will be invested in Fortnite if I am a casual Fortnite guy or gal or NB, right? So like, it's just kind of a bummer to see that these games cost so much, they're putting so much effort into them, and they're cool. I don't know if they're like the price tag cool, like X millions of dollars, billions, or I don't know, marketing costs that are associated with it cool, but they're fun, they're awesome, they're innovative, but it's just, we're not getting there. So
Can you name the last, and then I'm going to go to Luke. I can't name the last mega game that was made in the last 5 years that probably does the revenue that a Fortnite or Call of Duty does. Because I think that we're not in a period of innovation. We are in a period of the innovators have been purchased by larger companies, and those larger companies are now using them to pad their bottom lines.
Yeah, I mean, like, the
Luke,
closest you get is Spider-Man, right? Like, that's probably the perfect storm of like I mean, I guess maybe Elden Ring too, but like, Spider-Man is like the perfect storm of like, everybody was buying this game like hotcakes, but I don't think they still got anywhere close to the Call of Duty Fortnite numbers.
and also, I don't think that thing paid back in the way that,
No.
we know this, unfortunately, we know this from the leaks, that it didn't pay back in the way, because that game development costs and marketing costs were probably $500 million on that game.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cheat answer, but I feel like Grand Theft Auto is that one thing that, like, but it's a weird line because the games as a service aspect of that, but anytime they drop a new single player game, anytime they put it out on a new console, somehow that game's still selling copies even though it came out years ago. Like, that's a weird entity. But I was also going to ask, when did Valorant come out?
I think Valorant's 3 or 4 years
okay
now.
But I wouldn't put that on the same level as a Fortnite in terms of like cultural
Yeah.
touchstone. Like, I think it does well. I think it's a profitable esports title, but not on that same realm of.
Yeah, June of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 2020. Interesting.
Yeah. So probably benefited from people being in their houses to play a new game, but
Sure.
But I can't name a huge game that's popped off since then, especially one that generates recurring revenue.
The only not recurring revenue, but the only like exception to this rule are the Nintendo games, the Animal Crossings, the when Nintendo drops a Breath of the Wild, I mean, it goes insane for a first party game on one platform. The numbers that those games do is like like unreasonable compared to everybody else and like what everyone else expects to do. And I just think it's like because Nintendo has that market covered, everybody owns a Switch, everybody wants a family game. It's accessible to everybody, but that's kind of like the exception there.
Yeah, I think that's we're gonna break down sort of the big players and where maybe things have changed for them in the last couple months. But I think the thing that we will maybe say is that Nintendo's position I don't think has really changed at all, except for now that they're dealing with the weird, when is Switch 2 coming, uh, albatross around their necks. They're Disney. Let's be real.
Pretty much.
I think it's a good time here to dive in and talk about specific first parties. Let's start with Microsoft because I think that there's the most to talk about there. Their position, I feel, has really changed in the last couple of months, and I think it's on multiple fronts. It's from a community sentiment perspective, it's from a corporate pressure perspective, and I'm dying to know. I think the thing I want before I hand it over to either you or to you, Luke or Joseph, is I do want to say that one thing I maybe was wishy-washy on the last time that we did this episode was saying, consolidation sometimes is fine. I think what I've learned to reaffirm here is that in 99% of cases, consolidation is bad. And even though my perspective was, hey, Activision maybe doesn't have the best leadership, maybe Big Phil and his team can fix it. I think what I've learned here is that maybe I should just remember that consolidation is in most cases really bad. And this Microsoft acquisition seems to now be the same case. I don't know if you guys feel as negatively as I do, but the Tango Gameworks thing is a thing I keep talking about, and it's a thing that I don't know if I'll ever forget.
No, I think I'm right there with you. I feel like I think back to, I think it was an episode of Player Pod that we did on the day they announced the acquisition. And I think back on that discussion and how I think I was a bit naive in how I approached my takes there. And I think I was a lot more optimistic about the resources that Microsoft would be able to provide these studios, the access to treasured IP from generations past, all these things. A small studio like Double Fine would have security and support and um, things like that. Like I was really like optimistic about what this could mean, and I also was very diehard for Xbox as a brand at that point. And we were coming off a pretty universally failed console generation with the Xbox One that it really felt like they were firing on all cylinders with going into the Series X and saying the right thing, saying the right messaging, emphasizing Game Pass, acquiring interesting studios, and at the time putting their money where their mouth is. And in the years since, I've continued to lose faith. And then with the Tango Gameworks and Arcane Austin and the other two studios that were also closed earlier this year, I don't have any faith in like the corporate leadership and brand. I'm excited about individual studios within that portfolio, and I think there's still exciting things happening, but I'm regularly fearful of negative things happening to those studios. And I mentioned it when we were doing our reactions to the showcases last episode, but specifically with the game South of Midnight from Compulsion Games that looks incredible. I'm so excited for that game. I think the setting's awesome. I think the style's awesome. But I look at a game like that and my brain, rather than celebrating the work that that dev team has done, I immediately get scared and think about what happened to Tango and how if a kick-ass action game that won major awards that objectively sold pretty well isn't enough to cut it, what is? And it just bums me out because I want to be a fan of Xbox, but I am in this era in my later late 20s, let's say, of I don't trust corporations, and I don't want to like. I'm not excited about corporations. I'm excited about individual devs. I'm excited about individual projects. I think at this point.
Yeah, I
Joseph?
agree. I think looking back at it, there's a lot of optimism on like what could happen. Like, oh, there's this random IP. Tony Hawk could come back, X, Y, and Z. And
Guitar
I think
Hero, yeah,
guitar,
totally.
yeah. I just think like looking back at it, it was not a realistic expectation of what made sense to happen, right? Like, I don't necessarily think like looking back at it, the Tango Gameworks or the Arcane Austin closures are that surprising. If you look at what's on the wall, right? If you don't add your own spin to what could be possible, where there has never been an indication of this thing being possible, then I think it makes sense, right? Like where you say, oh, Microsoft can use all their money, they have infinite money, they can keep everyone open. It's like, well, they haven't really shown us that that would ever be the case. And although it would be nice, it doesn't really make sense for them to do that unless they are literally buddy buddy with these studios, which they are not. It is an asset for them to fill gaps with. And I think the reality of the situation is you look at Tango Gameworks and Arcane Austin specifically, and this decision was decided long before we actually saw the decision take place, right? You look at Arcane Austin, and I know people are upset with Microsoft for closing that studio, but I'm even more upset when I see the reports that, you know, before the acquisition even happened, all of the people that made Prey were basically essentially pushed out to, you know, show some live service game that ended up being Redfall, right? And I don't really care about Arcane Austin in name. I care about Arcane Austin in terms of the talent that brought me the games that I love, right? So even when you see studios like this pivot to different models to try and, you know, chase some trend or whatever, it's just such a bummer to see that, you know, you just let this talent go, this talent that like made some of the most iconic games in the game industry today. You just let them go because, you know, oh, like we have to pivot here because this is what will keep Bethesda alive for the time being. And it didn't work out and you lost all your talent, and that sucks, right? Like same thing when you look at Tango Gameworks. I love Hi-Fi Rush, but I'm not gonna lie, like before Hi-Fi Rush, I didn't want to hear anything that Tango was working on. Like Ghostwire Tokyo came out, and I'm like, really? Like Microsoft has Tango Gameworks who just made Ghostwire Tokyo. What are they gonna do? Now, the flip side of that is they actually surprised me because they had a team that was really passionate and had interesting ideas, and they made Hi-Fi Rush. But I think that was too little too late. The decision had already been made when this acquisition was signed on paper, and Microsoft had probably decided at that time, we don't want Tango Gameworks. We don't want to keep this open. We don't want to deal with a Japanese studio. We'll let them finish this Hi-Fi Rush game they're working on, and we're kind of shuttering the doors. And that sucks. Like, and that's why, you know, people want answers, and the answers you're going to get for these kind of things are just not fun, not happy, not anything, right? Like you, even on the software development side, I work in the software development world. And a lot of times when these big cuts in software development happen, you know, somebody goes to the manager and says, hey, give me a list of names. Like we have this budget. All of this organization is getting slashed. Give me a list of names, or just like, you guys have to move to some other org because we can't sustain your particular product anymore. I mean, and it just kind of is that harsh. Like there's no, oh, Hi-Fi Rush is a success. Wait, let's keep everybody open. No, they don't care about that. It's already been.
Xbox probably looked at a spreadsheet and said, how long is it until that studio makes another game? 5 years?
Yeah.
No, we can't wait that long.
Absolutely. Anyways, Luke, you had your finger up.
Oh, I wanted to add on to what you're saying, and the other gross angle of all this layoff stuff too is the fact that, you know, in a year or two, Xbox is going to announce another acquisition. Maybe they open a new studio, maybe they fund another project, and it makes me sick that like I don't run a business, I'm not an executive, but like that leadership at Xbox can't be more forward thinking to see that like there's more at stake here, and there's you know, long-term investment for some of these studios to make generation defining titles like can be commercially successful. I digress. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think that's a great point to bring up, because I think the struggle is Xbox is let's say a $15 billion company. We don't know, because if you look at their financials, the way that they're bundled is Xbox is actually bundled in the more personal computing segment of Microsoft's business, which is like a third of the business, but it includes like Windows OEM keys, among other things. So we'll never know exactly how large the business is.
Sure.
But I did some napkin math, and you know, if their gaming revenue decreases by $764 million in a year's time, and they equivocate that to 5%, then you could say, hey, their gaming business is probably $15 billion, right? If it is a $15 billion business in a $211 billion company, what is that as a percentage? That's like 5% of a company. That's a line item. So to
Right.
Joseph's point, it is great. Organic growth is down 5. You are getting the benefit of bringing in Activision Blizzard, which is a $7 billion top line company with decent operating income. Operating income basically means like bottom line, what percentage they make. What they're probably saying is, cool, you're not growing to the level that we thought you were going to. Therefore, if you're not growing, if you're down 5, what are you going to be next quarter? You're going to be 5% smaller. It's not that simple, but that's sort of the way that I really think about it. And if I think about the strategy that they tried to employ many years ago, like I could see Phil's vision. Phil's vision, if I'm filtering it through the lens of Satya, who runs Microsoft, it is probably, hey, games right now are capital intensive businesses. They are businesses that are not as high margin as Office 365, for example. Why don't you just can you just make Office 365 happen, or Windows keys that we just sell at a very high margin? Can you just make that happen, but video games? And the answer was Game Pass. But I think what we've learned is that there is a limited number of people that are going to spend $20 a month for video games in a down economy.
Yeah. And I want to go back to I think the common sentiment, and this is kind of where I kind of circle back to what I was originally saying, where everybody is in the same boat here, where, a lot of people I hear, oh, Tango Gameworks, or not Tango Gameworks, Arcane Austin, they made Redfall. That game kind of sucked. We can kind of understand why they got shut down, but Hi-Fi Rush was amazing. And I kind of hate that discussion because I feel like we who commentate on games business want to have it both ways, where we're very critical on studios who make a game that we're not happy with. And I think that's fair. You're allowed to judge the product that you receive. But at the end of the day, the studio is working their best to create a project. And Arcane Austin, probably didn't want to make Hi-Fi Rush, but they did, and they suffer the consequences for it. Same thing with, and I think if we look at Tango Gameworks 5 years ago, there's not a chance. If you pointed out on a spreadsheet and said, okay, Microsoft is going to close 3 studios. Who do you think the studios that they're going to close are? I think Tango Gameworks would probably be on that list, right? So I think it's really hard to look at these studios case by case and say, oh, well, they deserve to be open. They don't deserve to be open. I think that, these companies or these first party developers need to do a better job at, and this is the consolidation thing, at managing their portfolios and saying hey, these are our studios. We only have these studios and we're going to stand by these studios and their products, right? I think we're at a point where it is just so many studios that Microsoft has where it's okay, these are the bad studios. These games don't look good. We don't trust them to put out anything. So we're going to look at the coalition and these other studios to put out good games. I just feel like that's kind of a crappy situation to be in as a developer, where if I'm on Arcane Austin and people are talking about Hi-Fi Rush one way and my studio another way, I kind of feel like crap, because I'm dude, we're all just trying to develop and make games. We're all in the same boat. So I think we can kind of just look at this and say, hey, these studios deserve to build products that they need to build. And I get you can't have every studio making every game they want and have that happen in perpetuity, but I think these studios have legacy, and it's a bummer no matter who closes, right? Whether it's a new venture or a legacy venture. And I don't think it has anything to do with the game itself. Hi-Fi Rush did not have anything to do with Tango Gameworks closure. Redfall might have had something to do with Arcane Austin, but I think that's because that game has already been in development for X number of years, and the tea was on the wall. That's not how you say it, but the tea was in the leaves.
The writing was on the wall.
There we go. In the tea leaves. It was in the tea leaves. Anyways,
we read the tea leaves.
There we go. Thank you.
We got there.
The tea was on
Sorry,
the wall.
Luke, do you want to jump in there?
Sure. I agree with everything you're saying, and I think the piece about portfolio and managing the portfolio really resonates with me, in just a sense that you can't predict what's going to be a successful hit necessarily. You can't know if the passion project will pay off in the end. But I just wish we would see a little more caution from these key big players, being PlayStation and Xbox, of don't acquire the studio. If you're not confident, then you can keep them around in 3 to 5 years, because studios like Tango Gameworks, like Arcane Austin, were trucking along just fine, you know what I mean, doing their thing. And so, you play the what if scenarios of what products could have come out of that team. Would those team members have stayed for years and years to come? Would they have left? Like, it's sad, but yeah, it comes down to Xbox leadership for me, or Microsoft whoever is the one actually calling the shot. Because as much shit as we want to heap on Phil Spencer, I'm sure he didn't want to do it, but he had to make
No,
a
he
call.
did.
And I'm not
I
defending
talked
his
to him
actions,
personally.
but you did.
He,
Okay,
he
cool,
said,
cool,
yeah,
cool, cool. Good
he's-
to know.
yeah,
But
he'd
you
been
know what
looking
I
forward
mean,
to
of
this,
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just can't believe we I watched the Ryan McCaffrey interview with Phil at IGN Live, and I mean, we knew what to expect there. It would be I respect Ryan, and I think Ryan did the best that he could to ask an executive the very hard question. But we sort of got a dodge on it, and like what else can Phil do than say it was terrible, all these people, to try and get sympathy, when really, like, it was a and you understand how this happened. It's in there again. I read through Microsoft's annual report. It was riveting. But something that was pulled out was they say content is the flywheel behind Xbox Game Path's growth, and our pipeline has never been stronger. It wasn't stronger because if you remember the emails that were sent by Sarah Bond in 2022 when Starfield was being delayed, and they were looking for, cool, what thing can we acquire to put on Game Pass day one to sort of bolster the service? And I think often about how the number $300 million was thrown out for the new Star Wars Jedi game. So from my perspective, you spend $7 billion on Bethesda so that you never have to be in that position again where you're going out and potentially spending $300 million to license content. But the thing that sucks with Bethesda is instead of unbundling what was Bethesda that involved Arcane and Tango, etc., you buy the whole thing. And if I'm from Microsoft's perspective, I don't think they went out to close assets within Bethesda, but I think they bought Bethesda for BGS, and they got these other assets. And it's disgusting that I'm even talking about people and companies as assets. I feel gross. Being the business boy sometimes makes me feel like garbage.
Yeah,
But this is not therapy, though, Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, and I think we saw two different sides of the coin with this Activision and then the Bethesda acquisitions, because Bethesda, obviously, we got Tango Gameworks and Alpha Dog Studios closed as well. You got these studios closures, but then on the Activision side, we actually saw Toys for Bob just go independent, which is like great. Like you look at that and you say, okay, Toys for Bob doesn't fit in the vision for whatever Xbox is planning, and this team gets to still stay around, and these people still get to make games, and they even partner with Microsoft on their next project. It worked out. So clearly, when you look at the Bethesda situation, something didn't quite work out there. Either they tried to sell these studios and nobody wanted to buy them, or they couldn't, like, the teams couldn't afford to, spin off. I know Shinji Mikami left. So if anybody was going to buy that team's freedom, I think it would have been Shinji. And I don't even know what the case is for the other studios, but clearly something didn't work out there. But we got a lot of other points here. And I'm curious, consolidation information aside, we are at a certain position with Xbox. They're starting to put things more multi-platform. Phil Spencer said you will see more games on more devices, and we just had that Xbox showcase where we are actually starting to see some of the games that were announced like 5 years ago.
Multi-platform day one. To your point.
So where do you guys think we are going to be 5 years from now with Xbox? Like, is this shift in strategy? Because the multi-platform strategy, for me personally, I know people are, talking about hardware and stuff. I don't think the multi-platform thing matters at all. I think brand identity matters way more than what platform you're playing the games on. And I always bring up Fortnite, GTA, where these games sell well because of the gravity they have associated with their brand, not necessarily because they're exclusive to PlayStation or Xbox or anything like that. So first and foremost, to achieve a certain level of brand recognition, your games have to be good, right? And I'm wondering, do the games now get good now that the original promise is being fulfilled? Like, Luke, what do you think? Like, do you think these games are ever going to get to a point where we're steadily getting wins from these published Xbox titles?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to unpack because the 5 years question, I think ultimately, I think we'll still have an Xbox ecosystem. I do think we're going to see a lot of leaning into this multi-platform aspect. I think the rumors and talk and basic confirmation of an Xbox handheld from Phil during that Ryan McCaffrey interview as well. Things like that make me feel confident that Xbox will be around, but I think the games that are being published by that platform and a part of that label may shift a bit. And then to the second half of your question about, when will we get the good games? I mean, that's showcased for all of our expectations and problems. It was pretty stacked. Like those first party titles that we saw look awesome. And I'm very excited for the Xbox lineup in 2025 with, Fable and Doom and all those titles that we've touched on. Like I want to be a believer, but I am kind of skeptical in the brand. But to your point, I agree with the multi-platform stuff of, I don't think it really matters where you play, but if you associate the brand with Xbox, whether it's on your Samsung TV or on your handheld or on your Xbox Series device. But yeah, I'm just curious to see what their first party lineup looks like, or if they move away from that arm of the business and more focus on hardware, more focus more on like the service of Game Pass and kind of just offer that more a la carte. That's kind of my light prediction, even though I don't know what exactly it'll look like.
I think Phil is now being pushed for very fast wins. Please find us way outside of the acquisition of Activision Blizzard to get fast wins. And I think the like Steam Deck-esque hardware is a fast win, is a way to get the Surface team working on an Xbox like handheld. That is something that Microsoft in their size can fast track, I think. I think they're going to lean further into the service model of, hey, we are a publisher. We are a provider of cloud gaming services. We get closer to PC. I still often think about Steam machines and how I think Gabe Newell was right, but he was just 10 years too early. And how I think that will be the model for consoles. Gabe got it right. He just was 10 years too early for it. Genius shit. Just, we weren't ready for it. And I think the last thing I'll say is Xbox, as much as I think I was maybe a little bit unfair to Xbox during our last episode, where I was very blinded or very just like, I had a lot of emotions about, I really am not vibing with this brand right now because of what they've done to human beings. I can objectively take a step back and say, despite my reservations about 2024 and not putting dates on your big titles, which I saw one person on Twitter actually say, if you are a publisher and you have a Netflix-like model, you can just drop it whenever you want. You don't have to announce a date up front. You can just say 2024 and then drop it when you're ready and drop it when you think there's the best opportunity to, within reason. I think they have a stacked 2025 lineup. And as much as I have issues with the brand, I can recognize they have some bangers coming next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the only thing I'll say on this is like, when you talk about the brand, like the games just aren't consistent and steady enough. But from a consumer standpoint, the Game Pass model is, I still think, revolutionary. I don't know how they make money from it. That's not my problem to figure out. But I still stand by.
We know they're going to raise the price to the same level we were paying for box games.
Exactly. They'll figure it out. But like, when you have Game Pass and you look at a showcase like the Xbox showcase and you say, oh, all these games I can just play when they come out. I still think that like blows my mind as a a lover of games. Like I imagine the Nintendo Direct that we just got. If Switch had a model where it's like I just play these games when they come out, I would be going crazy. Like it would just be a unreal scenario to be in. It doesn't even seem like, obviously Nintendo would never do that, but it just feels weird that you watch the showcase and you're like, oh, I can play that, I can play that, I can play that, I can play that. And all they really need for the pieces to like make consumers or like more casual consumers pay attention to that is like, can you just have a good stretch of games like where with no caveats, like have Hollow Knight Silk Song drop into Game Pass, have it lead into Indiana Jones, have it lead into Fable, and have these all be relatively fun, universally fun games. I'm not talking about just an 80 on Metacritic. I'm talking about even if it's not that great of a game, the casual person can just boot it up and have fun with it. I do not think Hellblade is that type of game. I think it needs a very specific type of person to boot it up and have fun with it. But a game like, I don't know, Prototype back in the day, that game wasn't perfect, but the everyday average day Joe could boot Prototype up and be like, yo, this is insane. This is just goofy and fun and fantastic. They just need a better lineup to attract a more universal audience, and hopefully in 5 years they'll have that cadence down, but I don't know. PlayStation.
Remember 2021 for Xbox when we had, I think it was Flight Sim going into Psychonauts 2, going into Forza Horizon 5, which led into Halo Infinite, and then they shadow dropped the multiplayer. Like,
that was a tease of what could have been.
That was like, that's like one of my favorite times of Xbox ever, even now. And I don't see a world where we get that again.
Sad.
Even though I think they want that. Yeah, it's a weird.
I mean, on paper, it's like every year should be that, right? Last year, we're like, oh, we got
they have
Starfield.
so many studios.
Like, we're doing
it's
all
just
this
like,
stuff.
yeah.
It's just like when the game comes out, I don't know. And, this is no, like, obviously Phil Spencer is not coding up each game or whatever. And this is no shade to any specific developer, but it's just kind of like the bad luck of the draw where, yeah, Starfield is not as perfect as people thought it was going to be. Halo Infinite was a great game that just didn't have the multiplayer season roadmap. There's all these like really random gaps that aren't the same issue. They just, there's always a misfire somewhere. And somebody over at Xbox has to figure this out. They need their coalition or their Bungie to review the portfolios and say, okay, these are all the common pitfalls. Let's just not do these and we'll be good. So, and I mean, a bad game is bad. Like, there's no saving Redfall, but a lot of these other games you probably could have had a better cycle for overall. But I digress. Let's move.
Sometimes I wonder if Redfall could have gotten there with 2 more years. But again, who has the runway for that? One fact before we move on to another publisher, I think that the pressure is on for Xbox, given that hardware sales are so abysmal. In last quarter, so I think from maybe January to March, Xbox sold 800,000 Xboxes. In the same period, PlayStation sold 4.5 million PlayStation 5s.
That's crazy.
That's almost 6 times more. So I think that the pressure is on.
Who's trying to buy an Xbox nowadays? Let's be real.
I mean, I got 2 in my household. You guys want
one? I got one too. And I mean, I got the Master Chief Edition. I'm like, what am I doing over here? I mean, I like Game Pass. Let me be real. I like Game Pass.
Brings me on to my next point here. We're going to talk about PlayStation. We have the first question in the stock here. What does PlayStation look like under Herman and Hideki? I don't know how to say Hideki. Under Herman and Hideki, how does PlayStation look? We talked about a little bit about their past. We talked a little bit about what they're doing now between the 5 versus 5 hero shooters and online games that they're publishing in the next little while. How do things change? Go ahead, Luke.
Sure. I think about PlayStation leadership in kind of different eras of, we had the PS4, John Drake fun, everybody's on stage, we're releasing crazy projects, we're getting cool acquisitions, like Insomniac's making a Spider-Man game, every first party game is hitting left and right, the indies are showcased, Shuhei's out there, everybody loves Shu. But then we got into this, like, not the dark period because the games are still good, but the Jim Ryan era is like this weird time where they became a very buttoned up company. They became very like kind of coy with their announcements. We don't know what a lot of studios are working on. There's a lot of like gray areas as far as like the direction, and then we get these like moves towards the money with games as a service titles and the acquisition of Bungie, which is smart in a lot of ways if they want to move in that games as a service multiplayer angle. We'll see if it pays off for them. But I kind of hope to see under Herman and Hideki that, you know, Herman being former head of Guerrilla Games, that we get a little more focus on the developers. We get a little more emphasis there and a little more, I don't know. I like a transparent PlayStation personally in their brand. I like knowing about their projects. I like when the heads of studios and different members of their team get to showcase their games. I like when they represent indies in unique ways. That sort of thing. Like, I hope we see more of that, but I'm skeptical based on kind of the roadmap that Jim Ryan and company set in motion with all the emphasis on multiplayer, that we're going to see how it pans out with games like Concord later this year. And we saw some success with Helldivers 2 earlier this year, even though I don't know if PlayStation thought it would be what it is.
They did not.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts in a nutshell.
Joseph?
Yeah, I am pretty positive about the Herman and Hideki CEO leadership team. I think Jim Ryan really kind of got in at the perfect time. It was really the golden age of PlayStation, and I don't think they will ever get back to. I mean, I don't. That's like a generational run. That's like, you know, the Bulls to NBA run, where you have The Last of Us as an IP that pops off. You have the revisiting of God of War as a completely new genre, essentially, that pops off. Horizon new IP pops off. Ghost of Tsushima, and like you can just kind of rotate in between all of those games where you release that IP, it pops off. You do a remaster, you do a sequel, and it kind of felt like they were on autopilot to a sense, where they had these 4 IPs or whatever, and once we knew those 4 IPs and we were locked in with, I think, Ghost of Tsushima being the last one, like it was kind of just like PlayStation is these 4 games. Like, we are not going to experiment. We're not putting out really any smaller projects outside of PSVR. PlayStation, in a nutshell, is these 4 games. And I'll throw Spider-Man in there, 5 games. And it kind of felt like when you were ready for a PlayStation announcement over the last 6 years or 7 years, you were either getting a remaster of or a sequel of one of these 5 games, which was very exciting at first. But now, looking at where we are now, I think a lot of people are looking for something new. Like, okay, we know we've had the sequel to Last of Us. We've had the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. We know Ghost of Tsushima 2 is coming out. We've played another Spider-Man. Now you can't really rest on your laurels anymore. You have to come out with new and interesting concepts for the PS5 and PlayStation brand going forward. And I think a good signal is we have Astrobot coming later this year. That is the perfect signal to give to your audience and say, hey, look, we're trying different stuff. Astrobot is not necessarily a brand new title or character, but they're leaning into other things that aren't just that straightforward blockbuster type of game, right? Cinematic blockbuster type of game, right? It's kind of like Marvel, where you had the Marvel fatigue. I feel like in a way we were getting PlayStation fatigue, where it's like, okay, we're just getting, you know, these cinematic games, these IPs. Okay, now we're getting these live service games. And it's just like, where's the identity of PlayStation? Like, what are we doing here? And now we're seeing Astrobot. Now we're seeing Lego Horizon. And it's like, okay, they're trying to appeal to a wider audience. They're having a little fun with their IPs. Now, granted, one of those 2 games I mentioned is still Horizon. So we're still kind of dipping in the well of those 5 games. But I still feel like PlayStation understands they can't rest on their laurels anymore. We've had Helldivers, and you know, we're going to get a lot of hopefully more interesting first-party titles in this last half of the PS5 generation. Jacob.
Herman gave an interview, or he was speaking on stage, and it's the thing that I was trying to find here is, and he was talking about, you know, what is going to be important to the PlayStation brand going forward. And I think it's finally nice to see someone say single player games are the backbone of like very clearly single player games, backbone of what we do, but then maybe also allude to the fact that, hey, live service games will be part of the mix too. Yeah, I think the Jim Ryan era was pretty weird. You come off the PlayStation 4, which is a huge win for your brand, and the PlayStation 5 is a win, yes, but we don't really know what's coming beyond Lego. You said Lego Horizon. We don't really know what's coming. Big tentpole titles, so I worry on the single player side, but we'll get there. We'll get there with them, I think.
It's also Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What's interesting, Luke? Tell us.
Oh, I was just gonna say, on the note of not knowing what they're doing, we've transitioned to this era of state of play versus PlayStation Showcase, and it just the even the branding of their marketing is strange. The deep dives into different titles at interesting times that don't always correlate in the same way, and it's not like the biggest deal, but as someone who follows the industry as closely as we do, it is like, what are you doing over there? What's the strategy here? And versus just doing like more predictable cadences with their marketing beats.
Sometimes they just drop mad like huge not huge announcements, but like medium-sized announcements on the blog.
PlayStation blog. Yeah. What the heck is that?
So I'm with you, Luke.
Yeah, there's one thing I worry about on PlayStation, and it's like the release cadence, where I feel like they kind of are in a weird place where like when we used to get big PlayStation showcases in E3, it was like, okay, we got Last of Us Part 2, we got Ghost of Tsushima, we got Days Gone, and then we had like one other game, and then we were like, oh wow, this is crazy. They were like moving us to they were moving the reporters to different rooms, and you had these huge orchestras and stuff. And then the next year it was like, okay, these are the same games. They haven't come out yet, but we're still on the same marketing cycle for these same games. And obviously COVID and stuff messed everything up. But I'm kind of afraid that we are now still in this cycle where all of the big developers are on the same development cycle, and they're all going to release their games at the same time. And then we're just going to go to radio silence again for another like 4 or 5 years. Because isn't that where we kind of are? I assume Ghost of Tsushima will be out in the next 2 years. We're going to get Death Stranding 2 in the next 2 years. I assume that we're going to get another Naughty Dog project in the next 2 to 3 years, and then Horizon 2 to 3. Like, so when those games hit, all of those primary developers have to go back to the well and spend another 6 years building the next game, which likely will be a new IP for a lot of them, because you can't do another Horizon. I mean, well, they'll find a way, but Horizon's ending the trilogy. So I'm very curious, like, are we just not going to get that steady cadence of big IPs on the PlayStation 5? Are we just going to get one more big dump over the course of 2 years and that's just it?
I think we get the dump, and I think it's supplanted by, because PlayStation is doing these like exclusive partnerships in a way. Was it Stellar Blade? Help me, I keep getting them confused. Which one of the two?
The Stellar Blade.
It's Stellar Blade that they go and they negotiate some sort of exclusivity agreement and put it in PlayStation marketing, which is not. I mean, this is a tactic that's been used forever, but I feel like maybe Sony is leaning on it a little bit more heavily than they were because of gaps in their own like first party portfolio. So I think that's really how they supplant the gaps that they have. Because to your point, Joseph, like how many really first party studios do they have that put out AAA bangers like Spider-Man 2, Horizon? Is it 6, 8? With a 6-year development cycle, you're getting one per year.
The one thing I'll throw out to that, though, is I feel like unlike Xbox, at least PlayStation, every year I feel like we have one first-party banger. Whether it's Returnal or Horizon Forbidden West, going into Spider-Man 2 last year. I'm probably skipping a year somewhere in there, but I can at least think back to those tentpole titles that have continued to come out, and it'll be interesting too, because now we're in the world where we see like the second team there's like I think 3 teams total at Naughty Dog working on single player projects right now. So like how that'll affect their release cadence will be kind of interesting to see.
A new IP, and then something else
unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about PlayStation. We've talked about Microsoft. We're running a little long here, so I think I'd love to talk a little bit about Nintendo for a second. I know we talked about them at the start, but apart from maybe being an acquisition target for Xbox, I have kid. We saw Phil's emails. I just want to know how you guys are feeling about Nintendo. They just had the Nintendo Direct on the day that they're recording this, announcing their slate basically through January. A lot of remakes, 1 or 2 original titles. How are we feeling about Nintendo in their current state? And, what do you think the Switch 2 is going to be? We're just going to give the update here. How are we feeling? Luke, you have a smirk on your face. Please help.
I'm chilling, and so's Nintendo.
Great.
Like, we're just on this ride, and they're doing their thing, and I was really excited about the Direct. I thought we got some really cool remakes. I'm excited to see Donkey Kong coming back from the Wii. The new Zelda looks really dope, and I'm excited to see a different spin on that. And we finally got a trailer for Metroid Prime 4. Are you fucking kidding me? Even if it's not coming out this year, I'm still excited about it. Yes, that trailer looked great. What are you talking about?
I'm not convinced.
I'm very convinced. I thought it was coming out this year, but they definitely want it for Switch 2, so I understand. But that said, like, I'm always going to have the childhood nostalgia vibes for Nintendo. I'm always going to be excited about Zelda and Mario games, and I think there's, like Joseph said at the top of the show, it's the most accessible gaming platform still to this day, and kids and everyone up through grandparents can enjoy the Nintendo Switch. And I think when we look back at the Switch's library, I think we're going to still say it's one of the best first party lineups of any console of all time, arguably. And then you throw in the indies that came to Switch and PC, you throw in the eShop specific titles and stuff, and there's just a lot of great stuff there, and it makes me excited for Switch 2. I hope they just give us a more powerful device that runs all of our old games, and I'll be happy. I'll buy it.
Joseph, you angry about Nintendo? You happy about Nintendo?
So I have a lot of great things to say about Nintendo, but I'm going to be a hater real quick. I saw that Metroid Prime 4 trailer, and everybody has been hyping this game up for like the last 10 years or whatever. And I'm like, this looks like a regular video game. This looks like
Metroid Prime 2.
This looks like the most regular video game of all time. I'm like, is this Halo Combat Evolved that I'm looking at right now?
That's a good game, though.
I mean, it is a good game. I'm not going to lie. But I'm just like, is this really what we've been waiting for 10 years? And I'm like, I just can't. I'm not going to be baited on this one, all right? Like, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, we're flying off of Sky Islands and stuff. Like, this is regular. I saw this Metroid footage about 10 years ago. Like, this isn't new. Like, this all looks the same. Anyways, Nintendo, absolutely goated first-party publisher. They just figured it out. The Switch, ingenious hardware. And I think the only caveat to this is I can't wait to see how they do next year when they don't have, 100 Wii U ports to, port over to the Switch and piggyback off of when they don't have any content. But when you talk about a content drought, Nintendo doesn't know the word over there, all right? Every year when you think they can't possibly release anything else because they have new hardware released in the next year or in a couple months or whatever, they're like, actually, we made a completely new Zelda game where you actually play as Zelda. What are we doing here? We're out of our minds. We have a remake. We've been sitting on this remake for 4 years. Here, have it now. Like, and granted, it's kind of like the reverse PlayStation, where PlayStation doesn't have as much first party content, so they're leaning on the third party publishers. Honestly, looking at the Nintendo Direct, I'm like, keep the third party content. This looks like buns. Like, you could have just made this a 10-minute Direct with all the first party stuff and we would have been good. I don't know how they keep doing it. Like, their cadence is remarkable, and they have like a near 80% hit rate for first party games as far as I'm concerned. They may not all be for me, but they at least look pretty fun for somebody. I know Jacob doesn't like Tears of the Kingdom, but
wow, we're gonna bring that back.
2 for 2 on that franchise. 2 for 2 on that franchise.
How are we feeling about Echoes of Wisdom?
Echoes of Wisdom.
That's the new one?
Yeah, Jacob, talk about Nintendo. Tell me how you feel about that game.
Yeah,
that game looked fine. Zelda was magicking some. She was magicking some tables into existence, which I was like, cool, sweet. Why are we making? It just makes stairs, not tables. But I mean,
what a great thing! What a great marketing line, though. If they're like, you can make beds, you can make like all this stuff. You can make tables that she'll climb on. And I'm like,
and they could have written that poorly and been like, she can make the bed, she can make table.
Canceled. Nintendo canceled.
Nintendo's canceled. I don't have much to say on the Nintendo front. I think the one thing to watch that I'm just going to say out loud, and you guys will be mad at me for saying it, is I think we'll be really we'll have a lot to talk about when Nintendo announces their plans for backwards compatibility, and how they either do it in a weird way or they don't do it at all. Stay tuned for that. I don't have any other thoughts about Nintendo. I have one final question for y'all to close out the episode, unless you want to jump on the Nintendo bandwagon a little bit more. The answer is no. I just want to ask you a general, what is a trend that you think we will see in gaming over the next year or two? Is it indie taking over the world? Is it something different? Let's all take a turn and share a trend that we think we'll see in the next year.
I'll go with, I think we are going to slowly start to see the effects of Elden Ring start taking shape in like a lot of the bigger games. Like the games that started planning when Elden Ring had just boomed, we're going to see these open world Souls-likes and even more abundance in the next couple of years. That's my prediction.
It's a good one.
I think we'll continue to see the rise of indie publishing funds like Blumhouse, like Outer Sloth. I think there are a lot of like high profile indies nowadays. Like I could see, I have no information, but I could see like a Yacht Club Games kind of hanging in that same realm. But I basically, I think like successful indies will help fund other indies, and it'll be this like awesome simpatico relationship. And I think we'll just see more of that over time.
Do you guys remember maybe like 10 years ago when people were using the expression transmedia to say a property will be a book, will be a movie, will be a comic, will be an audiobook, will be whatever? I think we've seen a lot in the last even year when games like Dredge, and this is no disrespect to Black Salt, they made a fantastic game, but when you go down to a game like Dredge, which is an indie game, and Story Kitchen is making a movie about them, that's when you know that we're about to get a lot of games being turned into film and television. So I know that PlayStation is already working on a lot of that with PlayStation Studios, but I think we're going to see even more games being turned into movies because these companies got to monetize that IP, baby.
I 100% agree with that.
That's an easy one. Let's pull a Lukewarm Games and give me a crazy one.
Crazy one. Oof. Return of the Kart Racer.
Hey.
Ooh.
Okay.
All games will be able to be played on iPhones in addition to consoles, just like Resident Evil is today and Death Stranding.
Ooh. Ubisoft stops doing showcases in the summer.
That's crazy. That's the crazy one you got. I feel like that's totally possible.
Man, they have one new game, two new games, and still they put together a 90-minute showcase. Did you watch that thing?
Get excited!
Be in the
2026, everybody.
Rocksmith.
I want to be in the crowd.
Rocksmith for 10 minutes when anyway.
Where was my Just Dance segment? Where was that at?
It was on today's Nintendo Direct.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Get ready for microtransactions. You get dancers downloadable. Anyway. Hey, that was our update on the State of the Union of the games industry for June of 2024. I think this might end up becoming a more regular thing that we do. It wasn't as doom and gloom. I mean, it was pretty doom and gloom. It was all right.
Started off pretty rough.
But we got to it.
We landed the ship.
We righted the ship. Great call, guys. Great conversation. If you want to keep following the show, we're sending our status to away, but you can do 3 things in the meantime before we get another episode. You can follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos. You can send this podcast to a friend because that's how people hear about podcasts. And number 3, you can give us a review on your podcasting platform of choice. Shout out to Pocket Cast for putting us on the front page of the app for a little while. It was cool to just open it and be like, yo, that's crossplay. So if you're finding us through that, I hope that you've enjoyed the show, and I hope that you'll keep listening. With that, my friends, we're closing out the show. Video games, business. Bye.
Bye.